Good evening. Welcome to School Committee for July 21st, 2014. We'll start with the approval of minutes. We have regular session from June 16th, 2014. Take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the June 16th regular session minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ed?
Did we second, Liza?
Yes.
There are two additions that were catches that were not able to be incorporated into your minutes. There are two changes which I will make sure get into the proper documentation. If you'll go to last page, item number 10, subpoint 10.3, 10.3, below 10.3. First of all, it should be noted that the invoice of Chestnut Consulting is for peer review engineering services for the high school field improvement project. And the second change should be we approved an increase in the contract for PARE for project management services for the high school field improvement project in the amount not to exceed $10,000. Invoices will come at a later time as they are charged.
All right. So I'll amend my motion to approve the June 16th minutes with those two edits.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Your executive session from June 16th, 2014. Can I have a motion to approve, please?
I will make a motion to approve the executive session June 16th, 2014 minutes.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, we don't have our student with us.
No, we did send the addenda to him.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about
I
some.
mentioned back when we get back to September. Other communications, Doc? Anything?
No.
Questions and comments from the audience? Anything not on the agenda this evening? Okay. Superintendents report.
Okay, I did give you copies of the newest projection. Not a big change from the last time around. You have two sheets. One is for the elementary, one is for secondary. So for the elementary, we're projecting a total of 1,986 students, which is down from last year. If you look over to the side, last year's September actual enrollment, our first count was 2069. And the main reason for that being down is the fact, well, two facts actually. One is that our kindergarten, projected kindergarten enrollment at the moment is only 241, and that's down about 50 students from last year at this time. We don't know whether that means fewer children living in the town or more children who are going to school elsewhere for kindergarten, but that is a number that's down. Virtually all of the other numbers are numbers that are level, if not up. And so if you look at grades 1 through 5, that enrollment is a bit higher than it was last year at this time. As you know, we had two new FTEs that we were elementary that we're able to fund. One of them we assigned to a fifth grade 1 class at Foster. We did that some time ago, anticipating that those grade number 1 enrollments were going up because Foster already had increased its grade 1 by about 21 students. And I've said at each meeting that all of our elementary principals hear repeatedly from the realtors in their midst that a lot is happening in town and we should expect more enrollments. The second one, FTE, we have kept to be able to put it where we most need it. And right now, that would seem to be at Plymouth River in the 5th grade. So in the 5th grade, we're looking right now at 2 sections at 26 and 1 section at 27. And it would, since there are only 3 sections there, it would only take 2 more students to bring that up to 3 classes at 27 to start the year. So Right now, that's where we would place that, that teacher. I spoke with Chuck this morning, and we agreed that we will wait until August 1 and then make that decision. The other classes that are there in red indicate that those class sizes are higher than we would like them to be. On the other hand, the overall building averages and the overall total enrollment average are down a little bit from last year. So we'll see where that all goes. The other sheet is the first count that I've given you for the secondary level. And there, I always say that these numbers are soft, particularly the high school ones, because we don't always get notification until later that either that kids are moving in or that they may be moving out. But at the middle school, you can see the projection that we're making based upon two things, looking at the number of kids who've actually scheduled things, and those who have enrolled in our school, but because the counselors aren't in all summer, have not yet made out their schedules. But we've placed them there where they would be grade-wise, and you can see we're at 999. Remember, the building capacity for the middle school was at 1020, and so we're a little bit shy of that max, which is a good thing, because we think that next year the enrollments will go up. The size of the cohort is the group of same youngsters and where they were last year. So last year, and these are figures from actually June 1, last June 1st, we had 386 fifth graders, and we're projecting 368 sixth graders. So it would seem that about 20 kids are going somewhere else, moving from 5 to 6, not unanticipated. If you look at the third column where it says size of grade in 13-14, the 978 number at the bottom is the number of kids we had on June 1st. And so that building will be up at this point by 21 students over what we had in June. High school, again, softer. You can see that if you look at the number of 8th graders moving from 341 in June to 9th grade at 336, that's kind of a small drop. Typically, a drop would be a bigger one than that, so that's a number I would want to watch. I think of that as a fairly soft number. But projecting 1208, we have 1118, and if the 9th grade number holds up, we are looking at an increase of 90 students at the high school, and that's not unanticipated based upon simply moving class sizes along. So if you look down at the bottom, 4193, those are the kids who would be attending school in Hingham. That does not include 54 or so children who will be out of district, maybe 4 or 5 youngsters who will be in vocational school, and the preschool population, which will number, starting out, probably a number around 35 to 40, but growing as the year goes on. So in district, 4193, but on target for what we had anticipated. So that's it on the enrollment.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So on the first one, on the elementary school, so you noted that the kindergarten was down about 50 students at this point.
50 from last year,
From last year, right,
consistent
yeah.
with the year before,
Yeah.
which was about 250.
Right, and that 1 through 5, however, was larger than, so down at the bottom where it says total 9,613 of 2069, and then on the total, on the other side, it says 1986.
Yeah.
So that's a difference of what, 83 students? So if we're down about 50 students in kindergarten, how could
Well,
one?
yeah, because I said there were two things. One is
Okay.
that we lost our biggest class
Right,
of 386 that went to the middle school.
right.
And then we have a lower kindergarten. I have, let me bring it with me. I have the pluses and minuses for what all those
Okay.
grades are. For example, grade 1, it's up by about 50 kids. We ended the year last year with about 300 youngsters in kindergarten and there are 350 in grade 1, at least as we're counting them today. So that was a number that went up quite a bit.
Any other questions on the enrollment? Anything else?
Yes.
The hiring of vacancies.
Yeah, the hiring update. At this point, we have 20 new professional staff, meaning first contract in Hingham, and I have met with all but 2 of them, and I'm scheduled to meet with them within the next 2 weeks. Of those, 7 of those folks have worked for us in another position, either as a substitute, a long-term substitute, or a paraeducator. 7 of the 20. We anticipate 2 more hirings that have not been identified yet by name, and those are the English language learner teacher, which would be a part-time role, not part of the teacher's bargaining unit, and the other would be the new position for an ABA person, also not yet identified. So that brings us up to about 22. Meeting tomorrow with our mentor leaders. There are 2 of them, and I share with them the list of people, and we identify together which one of them will need mentors on the beginning end. Those that may be more experienced that we've hired who don't necessarily need a mentor, but may need what we call a buddy teacher, because if they come from other places, we all do things differently, and we'll talk about that. And then those that need to be part of the orientation, and that brings up the fact that our orientation will be on August 25th, a Monday, as it normally is, and it will be at East School, where it's been the last number of years since East opened, actually. And of course, any and all of you are invited to attend. That event starts about 8 in the morning, and we would welcome you being part of the early morning piece, in hearing the names and the profiles of the new folks. On the 27th, which is the Wednesday, is our annual convocation day, and that meeting is going to be at the new school, the middle school. Not an easy decision, in the sense that on the one hand, we'd like for everybody to see that building, and we only have one time during the year when all of our staff get together. My concern is about parking, because high school, we used all parking, and because it's an event where people come from home, carpool is not likely. So I have some ideas I'll talk with John about. We may want to do a couple of pickups at a couple of the elementaries to reduce people parking at that site. But that's going to be what we think will be a very special event this year, and so you're certainly all invited to participate in that as well. That starts about 8:30 in the morning, but we'll be moving into the auditorium around then, so if you want to come for coffee and goodies, it would be before that. So, I also was asked to comment on the status of our kindergarten exploration project, and as you know, that was one of the goals this year for Ellen and me, to provide you with some information so that at the planning meeting, which we now have scheduled, thank you all for our many attempts to do that, which we now have scheduled for Sunday in September. There will be a report. Certainly you will have the report before the meeting. What I mentioned earlier in the spring was that we have put some documents in your Dropbox under kindergarten exploration, because often the things that are the heaviest reading, if you will, are the appendix items in the backup information. So currently in that Dropbox there are a number of articles. The one that I passed out to you tonight is a new one that just went in today, but the others have been there for a number of weeks. And what's in the Dropbox includes articles, it includes the prior report on kindergarten, full-day kindergarten, and it also includes information from the benchmark communities in terms of the kindergarten programs they are in cost. It contains the information, some information about statewide kindergarten projects or kindergarten status, and it also includes information on costs from the local private schools that offer kindergarten. So I would suggest that those who want to get a head start can do so by reading those things, and as we have completed documents, we'll put those, we'll add to that accumulation of stuff so that you can get in advance. But I can't tell you the exact date of the report. You certainly will have it in advance of that planning meeting. I did want to mention a number of the things here are about policy, and I want to make a couple of comments about that. One is that the procedures for several of these policies were really weighty because they reflected laws. And not to reinvent the wheel or to be the least bit unclear about what the law says, we have included documents that in one case were recommended by MASC, the School Committee Association often has templates for new laws for policy. So the backup there, the procedures is there for that one, and in the other case, we got a legal opinion as to what needed to happen with respect to the criminal history law, which is a very comprehensive one, and we've used that for our procedures. So we put them there so that we would have copied tons more pages than we have. That way they're there, you can refer to them now or not. I'd also point out that within the very near future, before the end of the summer, we also are going to likely recommend a policy that has to do with cameras and security. As you're aware, John's going to comment on our bid award for security services, largely increased numbers of cameras. We don't have any school committee policy in writing that has to do with anything except cameras on school buses, and that was a long time ago. And certainly in our newest building, middle school, there are going to be many cameras, including internal ones, and as well at the high school, a number of internal cameras. And we really do need to have something about that policy. Typically, policy in that area has a lot to do with how the cameras would be used, number one, and number two, what would happen with the things that have been filmed. You know, how many days, how many weeks, how long do you keep that information, who is it available to, and so on. So obviously, many schools have cameras, interior and exterior, and we're not then going to reinvent the wheel, but we'll be collecting some samples and make a recommendation on that. Another thing that's likely to come forward is a meeting with either later this week or the first of the week with Derek Smith and Karen Condon and two of the teacher members of their tech team at the middle school to look at some policies that we've collected, particularly around the one-to-one initiative and how distribution of those devices and care of them, and whether or not there's insurance or whether or not there's a fee and how they would be signed out and all of that. So we may simply have a recommendation there that isn't a policy, but on the other hand, we might have a policy there. So there are two areas you can expect that you'll hear more about this summer. And I think that's it.
Unless there's an objection, I want to take something out of order, a request from the press, just in case we go late tonight, which I don't anticipate we will. But so if there's no objection, I'd like to move item number 9 and talk about those items now. And then we go right into item 8. Okay, so 3 items under the project reports. The celebration project update. Carol, do you want to talk about that?
Well, I think we've talked about this a few times. We're planning a celebration, really a day-long celebration on September 20th. Part of it will include a dedication of the POW MIA chair that we have built into the project. So that will sort of be its own celebration in and of itself, and maybe Ed might like to comment a little bit about that, if you would like.
No?
Sure, just a few words.
On the September 20th ceremony, field celebration, we will have a separate dedication of the MIA POW seat that is presently in the stands. Had a meeting earlier this evening with Ray and I spoke earlier this evening with the Veterans Council to bring them up to speed, and they're on board. We're in a planning stage, signage, and so on.
Right.
Yeah.
So later in the afternoon, there will be a dedication ceremony. We'll acknowledge various donors, the town of Hingham, who was so generous to support the project. Donor boards will be up. There'll be, hopefully we'll get some of the high school band and orchestra involved, and it should be a great day. It's going to be a day-long event for the whole community, so we really look forward to it. And there'll be more on that as we get closer to the event.
Right, and that'll be homecoming September 20th.
September 20th.
September 20th.
And the first game starts at
9.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. in the
Field
morning.
hockey.
Right.
There will be 4 games that day, 1 at 9, 1 at 11, 1 at 1, and 1 at 3. The MIA POW ceremony is scheduled between 12:30 and 1, and then the formal dedication of the field is scheduled
Be
for 2:45
Quarter of 3 to 3.
to 3, so that the 4th game, the boys' football, may be a little bit later than kickoff.
Maybe delayed.
A little bit later than 3.
20 minutes or so. It should be a great day.
Okay, great, thank you. I know there's a lot of planning and work that's gone into
Lot
that,
of
so I
planning.
appreciate that very much. The next item, the middle school, the new middle school, so I don't know if any of you have been by the site recently, but there's been demolition going on. The gym was down last week, science wing.
It's right around the corner from where I live, and I've been swinging
Yeah.
it daily, and it's just,
Yeah.
now you see it? No, you
Right,
don't.
Right. As part of the demolition, they did identify some additional beams from the gym that had a little bit of contamination that was not anticipated. So we're actually awaiting a cost estimate to take care of that, but they have been kept on site but segregated and can be remediated at some point once we get a quote from the contractor for the appropriate environmental treatment of that. But otherwise, the demolition has been going well. Aside from a little glitch with the air conditioning system in the administrative areas, the move has gone very well. Equipment, furniture, staff has been there for a couple weeks, 3 weeks?
A few weeks.
About 3 weeks, I think, since the 30th of June. But that air conditioning issue is being taken care of. We had, as you know, a yard sale
Yep.
last Saturday. I stopped by shortly after it started. It was quite crowded, very busy. John, do you have numbers?
Well, we took in about $2,800, and previously we had taken in about $2,400 for the shoring post. So, overall, salvage of about $5,200. But I think more importantly, it was a good opportunity for the community to come out, and see what remnants were left over from the school and be able to, pick up a file cabinet or a desk or
quite
a
a
rolling cart or a musical
music
instrument that
stand.
was no good, or a music
Yeah.
stand, yeah.
I saw someone walk out with a paper cutter. I got a couple of drums for one of my kids.
Right.
Things were moving.
Yeah.
What's the hot idea with the banks of lockers, and
Yeah.
had we had more personnel to be available in the days leading up to it, we could have taken more of those sets of lockers out of, and been able to
Right.
sell them.
We do have more lockers in Building 12, and, I've told people to contact Barbara Pye, and, they could grab a bank of lockers. I mean, they were going like hotcakes. We had 28 lockers, in 4 and 5 banks and stuff, and they all sold. They
And were these
also.
people using them for another school facility?
No,
or
no, this
personal?
Put them in the garage.
Yeah, in the garage for the kids, or, so.
Or in
it's-
children's rooms.
No, these were bigger ones.
Oh, the bigger ones?
These were
They're
the
not the
larger
little
ones.
ones?
No, not the built-in ones. These were the taller gray ones.
The original, actual
Yeah.
original 1961 one. One of the most amusing sales was there was a fellow came along and there were some things from the kitchen that we got. For,
Yeah.
I want to say Ed's concession building, but of course it belonged to all of us. But he had been worried about equipment, so we did get some things for that building. But a gentleman came along and asked about what was in the kitchen. John said, well, anything that's there, is for sale. What about the sinks? So you've heard the expression, everything but the kitchen sink? We actually sold 2 kitchen sinks.
That's right.
They were the deep 2 compartment sinks, the deep ones in which you wash the larger pots and pans. And someone actually came prepared with a battery-powered spotlight because the building had no power in it, and with whatever kind of saw one uses to cut metal, and sawed those things off and carted those sinks away.
Right,
Amazing.
So we sold
Awesome.
everything and the kitchen.
including the kitchen sink, yeah.
Great.
And I'd like to acknowledge and thank the central office staff who was working the sale. It's,
Yeah, they came in for
hawking the
me.
wares.
Yep, and the
Well, that's
custodian, Rich Berry, and one of the student custodians. So, yeah, it was a good staff, and they helped out, and we all worked hard, and
Some people came all the way from Connecticut to buy 10 of the cafeteria tables. Now, these are large with the stools
Right.
attached, but while they were there, they bought one of the kettle drums.
cello, a drum.
Cello, they bought all kinds of things. In fact, they ran out of space to be able to take back all the things.
Right. Yeah, he was outfitting a 27,000-foot armory in Connecticut. So, so I took his card and stuff and hooked him up with Barbara Pie too, so we can, because we still have a lot of stuff in Building 12. Building 12 is filled up again now. So the sales and, getting the residual value will continue, which is good,
Great.
That's true.
And meanwhile, how many of the modular units now have been moved out? I think it was,
Well, that Saturday morning, interestingly enough, there were 2 on flatbeds being moved.
on that day. But since then, we've moved.
Yeah, I haven't been there since,
Yeah, they all should be.
Well, I didn't
They all
notice.
should be gone within a week.
right by the 28th.
Yeah.
There were at least 2 or 3 there yesterday,
Yeah.
Yeah.
at least.
Something tells me last time I saw 3 there, but,
I think that's right.
I think so.
I think they took the 2 that Saturday, and there's still the 3.
It's exciting on Saturday watching them, they were changing, they had a flat tire on one of the flatbeds with the modular on the pneumatic jacks. Oh, boy.
I was telling John, was on the way back from a conference on Friday afternoon, early afternoon, and so I'm listening to the traffic report, because I'm coming from the Cape going north, and the traffic was heavy, and there was someone who was one of the helicopter traffic viewers who was saying, well, we've got a terrible tie-up up somewhere up north on Route 3, and it seems that a house has fallen off a truck. And I immediately thought, oh my goodness, maybe it's not a house, maybe it's one of our modular units.
But it wasn't.
And so, in fact, I kept listening and not knowing whether one was on the road or not. And then later on, she came back on, she said, well, it's not really a house, it's a modular house. So, we don't think it was one of ours.
I don't think it was one of us.
Anyway. So we've had an enjoyable time, although time-consuming, with all of these things.
And I think, as I mentioned before, we did schedule the ribbon cutting for August 20th. I think it'll be 3 p.m. So we're looking forward to that.
I did see Jack McCarthy on the Cape last week at the conference, and he asked about our building, and I said, had we set a ribbon cutting? I said, yes, we did. It was on the 20th. He wasn't sure that he could be there due to taking a child off to college, but that someone would be there. And when I told him it was later in the day at 3, he said maybe he could make it after while he's coming back.
Great. John, anything else on the move, or? Anything else that you want to mention?
No, I think,
I think everything's really
Yeah.
gone well with
Yeah.
the movers, the furniture, the telephone. They're working on the telephone system now.
telephones, yeah, being worked, yeah.
Yeah. As you
That's
know,
supposed to be done by
the
August 1st.
town is switching over to a voice over IP system or new equipment.
New phone
New
system.
phone system. And the middle school was moved up to the top of the list to get installed right after town hall. So that's
Right.
going now.
Well, everything should be done, schools should all be done by August 1st,
Yeah.
so, you know.
Yeah, East and South School and Plymouth River and our middle school are all impacted.
Okay. And the last item, the exploration of potential turf field at the middle school. Meetings have been scheduled. The advisory had originally scheduled for August 5th. They have moved that date now because the selectmen wanted to hear this on August 5th because of some other items they have on their agenda. So selectmen will meet on August 5th, starting at 7, I think will be the second item on that agenda. That'll be a televised meeting. The advisory committee will meet on August 12th, I believe, starting at 7:30. That will also be a televised meeting. And in school committee, we will take up the issue on our August 20th meeting. So all of the meetings will be held in August, and then the building committee will take the matter up for a decision on September 3rd.
As the school comes down, you get at least I get a better perspective of just the space that's available.
Yeah. And if folks have questions between now and any of the meetings or our next meeting, please let me know. If there's any information or materials, happy to get you what I can, answer any questions. So we look forward to those meetings. Yeah.
Could you send us some additional correspondence that you received or documentation or any other information? I wasn't able to go to the June 24th meeting, but I watched the video of it, but that's really all the information that I have.
Sure.
So whatever you can send us, I really...
Right. Well, I think letters that we have received, or the building committee received, this committee received, have been distributed. I know that there's a letter in your packets tonight.
That's all that I've received.
Right. Also, the presentation by PAR Corp. At the June 24th meeting is on the building committee website. As
I can also email Liza.
Right. We can. I think I have them all electronically. I can send them, as well as the budget documents for the project. In fact, I have updated ones, but we'll have updated ones again when we meet on August. I think our next building committee meeting is the 13th.
What is, just because the letter in the packet said 600, 800,000, June 24th seems like a long time ago. What is the updated?
Well, there is no update. There was a presentation on June 24th. There were 4 options presented. They ranged from a low of 600,000 to, I think, 800 and change. I don't have the exact numbers with me, depending on the option, whether it included a baseball field, whether the baseball field was relocated, where the area for the...
600, 900 is the range.
Yeah. And again, that's kind of an order of magnitude number. That's not based on any specific design, but rather just a conceptual plan.
Can you answer one
Yeah.
question? So right now, if you were to go with the original plans, when would they start creating the regular grass field, and when would that be available? If you did the actual plans right now.
Sure. Based on the demolition schedule and what Brait is trying to accomplish with the site work and getting the bus loop for us before school opens, it may be as early as September that they would start that. Under the contract, the bus loop is not supposed to be finished until around Thanksgiving.
Correct.
they are endeavoring to accelerate that. We have no guarantee that that will happen, but we hope that it will. The plan is to have that bus loop operational by the opening of school, but it may not be the case. Under the contract, they do have until Thanksgiving. So there are a lot of factors involved. Continuation of demolition, if anything else comes up during demolition that may slow it down for any reason, any other unforeseen delays, weather, things of that nature. But based on the current plan and what Braid is trying to accomplish for us, I was told that they would start on that field site work around the beginning, second week of September, something like that. Natural grass fields would not be available for playing until the spring of 2016.
So
Given that schedule, they need 2 full growing
that's
seasons.
September 14, all right, so then they would need April of 15, September of 15. Okay.
Yeah. They would need 2 full growing seasons in order to play on them.
Okay, and then if you did synthetic,
Yeah.
when would that possibly, what would that time frame be?
Likelihood is that it would be ready for play in the spring of 15.
Spring of 15.
I'm not sure how early it would depend on,
Okay.
how quickly we went out to bid, because if we did move forward with that, there's been some discussion with council about whether or not a change order of that magnitude would be the appropriate way to go, and based on prior experience, it would be advisable to go out to bid again on that aspect of it. Bright may very well bid on it and be the lowest responsible bidder, but I don't know. So the bid would be one determination, and also any additional permitting that we would need for that.
I
But
guess,
assuming that got done in the fall.
Right.
And construction, it would be spring.
okay. That's just my two, I know we're going to talk about this later, but after listening to some of the stuff, I think, I love turf. I do. I support turf. I'm concerned about my knee-jerk reaction is that since we had such a wonderful experience so far with turf this year at the high school, some people might think of it as this cure-all. It's the best, best thing since sliced bread. And again, I do love turf. I just remember being the chair of the Master Plan Review Committee for the middle school. We never talked about fields. Never came up. And so, and since we have such a beautiful building, I'm concerned, just my thinking is I don't want anything to affect how wonderful this building is with getting sidetracked into this. So the reason why I was asking about the dates is if the building committee, I would almost like whatever they decide, if they were to change this, I would like it, and again, we're going to hear a lot more when we meet on August 20th. My initial reaction is love to see this to go to town meeting, and then if it went to town meeting, I would then assume it would be open in fall of 15. So we're only talking one season. But I do, my personal opinion, I speak for myself, being involved in the Master Plan Review Committee, this was really not a part of the scope. And so I'd like to see things more flushed out. And I know that I've heard, you hear rumors through, everyone keeps talking about if we buy the Hingham Mutual building, could they expand the fields up there? So that's just my 2-second thing. And that's why I appreciate you giving me the dates. And that's where I was going with asking the dates.
That's just a guess based on current circumstances.
Well, I mean, it's as good as anything else.
Sure.
I mean, it's a fair guess right now.
I will say, certainly you didn't discuss fields in Master Plan Review Committee because that wasn't the charge, and you weren't even looking at a specific design for a specific choice. You were coming up with possibilities. I will tell you that in Building Committee, when doing the design for this school, we didn't spend any time on fields either. The only reason why we have fields is because we had fields before. And there happen to be fields that go along with the model that we're using, but we didn't spend any time on them whatsoever, and I think I've said this before, other than to value engineer some items out. I think just like with the high school field, there was a thought about moving forward with a grass field, and then there was a decision made that synthetic turf was really the way to go for a number of reasons.
Well, basically, what you're saying is what I'm saying, in the sense that it wasn't in our scope, it wasn't in your scope, so if this is becoming in a scope, then let's let town meeting decide it.
Right.
Or, so that's what I'm saying, is that
Sure.
since it was in none of our scopes, even though we have this money, again, the knee-jerk reaction is we had such a great experience this year, let's just put another one in, let's put 25 in them. But that's why I'm just saying, maybe this is something we should take just a little deep breath. But, you know,
Right.
look, I'm sorry I went off of that. Again, I was
That's
asking about the
fine.
timeline.
No, so I think, and just to finish off with that, the thought, I think what we are doing this month is we are taking that deep breath, and we're actually going to boards and asking for their opinion, to weigh in on whether they think this is something that we should pursue.
So on September
Town-
3rd, are you making a decision? Or are you-
Yes.
Okay, because it said you're holding a meeting, it didn't say the decision. Or I misread it.
I mean, town meeting appropriated a dollar amount, and the building
No, I was just
committee.
reading your letter to
Right.
the.
And the building committee is authorized to spend up to that. We won't, because we're far under budget. The only question is, should we use some of the contingency funds for something that some folks think would be a valuable addition to the project and also be an asset to the community, similar to how we're spending contingency funds on, or will likely spend contingency funds on some technology items. So, that'll be before the selectmen for their advice. That'll be for advisory, who are the stewards of town meeting, for their advice. And then the building committee will make a decision.
Sounds good.
And actually look forward to this board weighing it as well, since this board does control the school property. So, and that's, I think, all I have on that. So again, selectmen on August 5th, advisory on August 12th, school committee on August 20th, building committee September 3rd. Okay. Any questions, comments on any of that? And Carol, I'm going to send, probably to you and Mary, just a blurb that summarizes those dates again tomorrow to run in the paper, but if whatever story you're running, you'll probably mention it. I just want to make sure that it's prominently in the paper, and we're going to socialize it other ways as well. Thank you. Okay.
Back to 8.
Go back to number 8. So there are a number of items that policy has looked at recently. First one is athletics. Callie, you want to take us through?
Dennis.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dennis. Apologies.
I'm glad to do that, although I might say that Dr. Gallo probably is more conversant with it than I. But you see, what you basically have here are various policies that are required change due to new legislation and changes. And as our practices and as required to do, policy look through it, we'll make a recommendation to the school committee can discuss it, and the actual final vote will come at our next meeting.
But the first one is athletics.
Yes.
That's not,
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry.
that's the fees.
Sorry
for-
about that.
Yep.
Yeah, so the very first one is, if you remember, we had a discussion, when we initially set some fees last fall because we were, seasons were starting, the multipurpose field was available, we needed to set some fees. We did that back in the end of September, beginning of October of last year. We had a meeting with all of the various youth committees, youth sports groups. They had some concerns. After additional discussion, we decided that the best way to address that was to do a pilot program that would go to a per participant charge, rather than trying to say it was going to be X dollars each time we use the fields and whatever. And one of the ideas behind that was, since the groups previously obviously had not used the multipurpose field, and since the intention was for us to allow them to use it as much as possible, rather than charging separately to those groups for the multipurpose field, the idea was charge a per participant fee, and when there was availability, after we scheduled all the high school needs and the rest of the school department needs, we would make those available to the various groups. And so that happened this past spring. The feedback has been positive. They were very appreciative of having that opportunity, particularly as wet as this past spring was. The initial feeling from John Ferris was that from a revenue point of view, the revenue was reasonable, that we took in to cover the costs that we had, the out-of-pocket costs and so forth. So our recommendation is that we continue that pilot through the fall season to see what will happen, during the fall sports season. And then we would come back to the school committee and recommend whether we would change, alter the vote that we took initially for the youth sports programs on the fee structure. But again, it just seemed to be the logical way to do this and to have complete information before we change. So that's really what 8.1 is all about.
And Margaret met with the potential fall users, which of course would include youth football, flag football.
There's soccer, lacrosse.
Soccer.
And was able to find spaces, bigger number of spaces actually on the turf field. And so that meeting has already taken place with those users, and who I think are enthusiastic about this possibility again this fall. So we're all ready to go, waiting.
Everybody was quite happy, actually, at that meeting.
Is 8.1 restricted and only deals with the multipurpose field?
No, actually, it doesn't really deal with the multipurpose field per se. What it says is for the various programs, youth soccer and lacrosse and so forth, they will pay a per participant fee, and they will have access to the multipurpose field on a balanced basis, if you will, whenever it's available. So there will not be a separate charge. So really, they're paying for the normal field usage that they've had in the past, but when the multipurpose field is available, whether that's for practice or games or whatever, that will be available at no additional charge.
Andy?
Dr. Gallo, just to continue on one thing, I think actually Margaret, or Athletic Director Margaret Conti, has done a wonderful job. Not only has she come to those meetings well prepared by meeting with all her coaching staff and outlined all their needs, it's all, she uses one of those Google Calendar or whatever, scheduling
Yes.
calendars. So it's well mapped out, and it's a very easy process. So
I think she found that there really was a lot more time than she thought might be available. So,
the tough times for her is that first week and two, and then get into the playoffs. But there's plenty of time in between.
And there are some one-hour opportunities, but most of the teams felt that was not
Yeah, it's hard to-
sufficient. They really need
Yeah.
2-hour blocks.
Right.
So,
Liza?
Yeah, I think it's great that everybody's happy. I would like to see, I sent John an email today, I don't know if you had a chance to see that. Didn't expect a response today, but I would like to see, once the fall season is over, some of these hard numbers. What are the number of participants? What are all the leagues? How does it compare to what we collected in the past? And so that we do really see the hard numbers. Are we covering our costs? Are we generating enough revenue? Are we generating more than we did before? And as opposed to just going on, yeah, everybody's happy.
Right. Based on your email, Liza, I did take a look at previous years to see what type of revenue we brought in from the fields and compared it to this year. So, for example, in FY12, we brought in $15,350. FY13, we brought in $21,969. And last year, 14, $13,860. But we knew that was going to be cut down anyways because we were restricted by field usage for last year. In receipts, or, Barbara Pye put together an anticipated revenue for the spring and the summer, and that came to $20,930. Now, whether we realize all that or not, I'm not sure of yet, but, not bad by looking at the groups and multiplying them out by the $6 per, for the number of people that they reported. But clearly, I would agree with you 100%. After the fall season, we should have the numbers of the participants and stuff, and we'll be able to take, and have like actual experiences in the collections and what they've reported, and be able to get the real good hard numbers to make a determination as to whether, the covering the costs, or at least keeping up to where we were.
Yeah.
right? Because, I mean, the costs are very high. We know that the costs, if we include Barbara, pieces of Barbara, if we include, pieces of the field maintenance or Barry and stuff, I mean, those costs could get significantly high, but they're already servicing some of the school portions as well.
Right.
So I think to the extent that we're equal in revenues or growing revenues somewhat, I think we're probably in good shape there.
Well, and I think that was the rationale for extending this trial basis for another season, because we only had one season. It really might be a little skewed because you have fewer sports perhaps, or maybe not, fewer numbers, and to look at it for the whole year,
Yeah,
so.
no, that
Right.
makes total sense. And
Yeah.
then I think we should look at, do we start putting aside money for eventually when the turf field has to be refurbished, replaced, so that, if we know, it's 10 to 15 years, if we have an account that each year we're putting aside, whatever, $10,000, whatever we need so that come that year that the carpet needs to be replaced, we have it, and then we're not going back to capital and worrying about, oh, we need this, we can't wait 5 years, the kids can't play on it. I'd like to see us prepare for that. We know it's gonna happen, so.
Right. Sinking funds have a funny, it almost sounds like a sinking fund, you want to fund it for like 12 years down the road, and from a municipal standpoint, sometimes that's putting away a lot of money that just sort of like sits there,
But
but.
to dredge the Hingham Harbor, I think we can.
Yeah, well, I think it needs a greater action. I think it needs a greater action than just, putting it into like a field revolving or so,
At the very least, I think we ought to have a discussion with capital as to how, their
Yes.
thoughts into how we treat it.
Yeah.
Because, in other assets, once the town has approved the asset and we've put the asset in, and I guess to some degree this would relate to whether we do anything at the middle school as well, how do we know there are replacement costs.
Right.
So once we're committed to that and it becomes an asset that's used by the schools and by the town, how are we going to do that?
Right.
And if they say, oh, yeah, we need to, we can cover $500,000, we can't cover $6, or we can cover 400, whatever, or they might say, hey, look, yeah, we'll put it in our plan, and we know that 10 years from now, we need to put aside $500,000, whatever the number is,
Right.
I'm just guessing the numbers, we need to put $500,000 away, and we understand that, and you continue to operate as you have in the past by covering, various things, because a lot of that, that money's been used for operating purposes in some cases, and to cover athletic costs and so forth.
Right.
So, to try to start taking, I'm picking a number out of the air, $50,000 a year, and put it aside each year, we might then have to raise additional revenues and charge additional fees, which would kind of offset the kind of usage that we're really looking for those kind of, but I think we really definitely ought to have a discussion.
It needs a different vehicle than what, I think it just needs a different mechanism or accounting or structure than what we have in place today, that's
Well,
all,
and actually, the perfect example of that is the new special education
Right.
fund.
Similar to
There's
that.
an active legislature that's required to be able to put away money for some future year's use. So we need to talk to Ted whether there is a vehicle for that, or whether it has to be something like the self-restriction idea that's being used there. Because I think what we probably can't do is to put in our athletic account an amount of money that may not be used for 10 or more years.
I
So-
just don't
so
want
there's a
us to be
vehicle.
caught with the year that the carpet is not playable, and then the town says, no,
Sure.
we
Right.
can't replace it now.
Right,
Because we
yeah.
know that's gonna, there will
Yeah.
be a year when it has to be replaced.
Yeah.
So.
It should show up on the 5-year, at least 5 years out, wise, with no doubt, it should show up on the 5-year, at least 5 years out,
It's a great point. We've already started to have those conversations, and I think capital is starting to move in the direction of being more thoughtful about those types of items. And they'll have a new chairman after the end of this month, so we'll see who takes Ray Eisenby's place, who, if you don't know, Ray Eisenby's is moving from Hingham and will not be on capital outlay any longer. So there'll be a new chairman, and my understanding is that they're going to be looking more forward and trying to get into a situation where they're not, left with a year where they have a need and they don't have money to cover it.
And I mean, we also discussed last year in long-range planning, and I assume we're going to move in that direction to look ourselves farther out for major items. I mean, whether it's a field or whether it's a roof,
Yeah,
it's a $2 million roof repair, you don't want to find out even 5 years ahead that all of a sudden now, 5 years from now, we need to spend $2 million on a new roof or things like that. So, the town in general needs to be looking at that. I think we as a school committee have an obligation to look out that so we can encourage that conversation, since we have a substantial portion of the capital assets, are under our purview.
I think that there are two issues, really. One is looking forward, so you know about when those costs are incurred. But the other is to find a legitimate way that, to put money aside in the municipal setting. That's always been an issue for us. We as homeowners can put money aside for the day we need the new roof. There hasn't been that same kind of vehicle for putting money aside in the municipal side, and to me, that's the biggest issue, is the how can we do it?
So I would like to move that we continue the pilot fee structure for Hingham Youth Sports Organizations for the fall of 2014 at the level of $6 per participant plus any applicable custodial charges.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Just a question, will we be revisiting the winter sports scene as well?
Well, the winter sports scene is the basketball.
Indoors.
Is the indoor thing, so.
I would think you'd have to.
Basketball, volleyball.
You'd have to, would either extend, I think we have
Volleyball's
to
in the
address it
fall.
again in the fall to either extend the pilot or sort of set the rates. And then I think that Barker Basketball would in fact qualify as a significant, one of the
Yeah,
community organizations.
That's going to be something we have to look at, because I know that there was some concern, particularly with the Gals League,
Yep.
about the charges.
Yep.
So,
And that's another piece of information that we're going to have, not so much extending this pilot is the big factor, but there are, as you know, we're hiring some additional custodians, and there are some ongoing negotiations that may impact those custodial fees, which were the big issue for the inside. It wasn't the use of the building per se, it was the custodial fees. So as we move forward, know more about where we are in negotiations, we can have a better sense of what to do in the winter.
And we have two positions posted now to have Saturday custodians in both the middle school and the high school. And those positions have been posted, have not heard, it's all acceptable by the contract, so it was fortunate that we got the positions in the budget, so.
We actually have 5
That should help.
custodial openings, 4 full-time and 1 part-time because of a retirement that will occur in August. So if anybody knows anybody who might be interested in such a role, encourage them to apply, because it's rare that we have that many new positions. And I don't know that we ever even announced to this group that we did fill the custodial supervisor job that we got in the FY14 budget and had not yet.
That's right, yeah, FY14, that's right.
And so Katie Hartman, who is been the head custodian, since just opened, has moved to that role. We're really excited about how she will be able to help us in that role. So that's one of the new. Then we had 2 new jobs at the middle school and 1 at the high school, and then the last one is the halftime person who will be retiring, so.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. For 8.2 and 3, those are first readings?
And 4.
And 4, correct. First readings of the policy. Anything you wanted to add to those? So we've got 8.2 is essentially, in addition to Corey, adding fingerprint-based criminal history record information check. 8.3 being a student discipline change, and 8.4 a change to the cap on the available checking account for student activity counts at the middle school.
Well, 8.2 and 8.3 needed some changes in our current language, because we do have some language that we put in when we went to the Corys. And 8.3, we do have some student discipline language already, so we're able to amend that language to come up with new policy. As I mentioned, the procedures, we're following some guidelines that were developed by a perhaps more in-tune source than we are in terms of the actual law. The fingerprinting law actually was supposed to go into effect last summer, but the state did not have a process for people being fingerprinted. That process now exists, is operational. We had a mobile truck here on June 16th, I think it was, and we have people every day that are getting fingerprinted, and essentially before school starts, anyone who was hired last year or anyone we're hiring for this year needs to go through the process. The process is moving very smoothly, but there is going to be a big impact in terms of the clerical piece of it. In terms of keeping the records, in terms of decision-making, and this is what the procedures are about, decision-making if you were to get information that is not entirely satisfactory, then what rights does the individual who is applying for the job have with respect to that? Who will be reviewing those? And that falls under John's role, and so on. But at least it's moving smoothly. I had not a lot of faith that would happen. But right now, it's a very quick turnaround and a very easy process. It takes about 5 minutes. John has been through it. And then we have 2 more years to get all of our other staff fingerprinted. So that's moving well. The student discipline one, this is a law, Chapter 222, that was actually declared by the Attorney General to be an unfunded mandate. You know, the phrase unfunded mandate, you hear a lot, and it was determined to be an unfunded mandate. To date, no one has come forward to now say we're challenging this law and the costs that it has potentially. Potential costs would include the cost of providing education for students who are suspended for 10 or more school days, either in one shot or cumulatively in the year. Prior to this, access to education was required for special ed students who might have fallen into that category, and now we have to provide some sort of a program. So to the extent that we might need to provide courses or tutoring or some late afternoon option for children to attend school that can't be in school during the day, right now the districts all bear the responsibility for that cost. There are a few other changes in the law that have more to do with the protocols and the timelines by which parents and or students can challenge their exclusion from school, and the right to appeal to the superintendent and those kinds of things. So there's some procedural things, but basically it's we need to provide for these children. So we're developing a plan that we can offer to anyone who might be in the situation. For us, fortunately, we don't have we don't have a lot of these such cases, which is a good thing. On the other hand, we're sitting on 2 cases at the moment that have that potential. So just when I said to Paula and Derek earlier in the year, well, let's get together in the summer and develop a plan, but fortunately, we haven't had to use such a plan all last year, but there is that potential always.
So in 8, I'm sorry, you want to comment on it?
Yeah, on the 2.1 on the fingerprinting one, where it says, are part of the general background check for HPS employment, volunteer work, and contracted services. Under the volunteer work, it does say for a sustained period of time, but I think we should define what that means very clearly, because it especially at all the levels of the school, there's a lot of volunteers, parents through the PTOs that come in, and I don't want to unnecessarily, or how are we going to define that? I know, reading the Mass listserv, there are towns that are requiring any type of volunteer to be fingerprinted, and but I just think we should define that, and if it means, somebody, sustained period of time that, they're in the library for
Doesn't it?
every
Right.
Does it say
day for a
unsupervised?
week, or
Yeah, what it should say there, I think, is a part of a general background check for employment and certain volunteer work and contracted services. And when I say certain, for example, when we built East School, we didn't do Cory checks on every single volunteer because it was an empty site, and we didn't do Cory checks on any of them. So I don't want to say that it would never be for contractors. It could be. With respect to volunteers, the law says unsupervised access to students. So when we talk about field trips, I've reminded the principals umpteen times, if it's an overnight field trip, absolutely, we want to query those volunteers. If it's someone who's coming in and going into a neighboring little office to work individually with students, absolutely. It's someone coming in to be a speaker. If it's two parent chaperones going to the Museum of Fine Arts with teachers and a group of children, no. Quite honestly, we couldn't even manage the number of queries that we have that way. So it's hard to define it because every situation is unique, but the law does speak to unsupervised access to children. So I would add some to the volunteer and contracted services and use perhaps the wording in the law as opposed to people may potentially interact, use the actual wording, unsupervised access to students.
And then maybe provide some examples to the principals so that if they get questioned, they can respond.
Yeah, and I think that those things are clear in the policy, but, in the procedures, but.
Okay.
Okay, let me make those changes. So that would be changes in the black, not changes in the new.
Right.
Changes in the existing.
So I was just going to say in 8.4, I think it's pretty straightforward. Last year, we updated this, and we knew that in the high school, there were substantial additional expenses that come up toward the end of the year. We knew that there were some in the middle school as well, but we were reluctant to immediately change that. Now with another years of experience, we saw that there is a need to have somewhat higher balances toward the end of the year, and that's what this relates to.
There are more kids at the middle school now.
Well, spring is very busy. I mean, the 15,000, we talked to the,
We thought it was a little skinny.
the principal and assistant principal, and, oh yeah, okay, we can do that, but when you get into all of a sudden writing those checks, the
Right.
15,000 goes really quick.
A little skinny.
So that extra, and then you're at risk of bouncing checks, and it takes us a couple of weeks, so much better during that busy season to allow them a temporary increase similar to what we do with the high school.
So if you have any further questions or comments on those, please send them to Dot and/or John before our next meeting, and we'll vote on those then.
Thank you.
8.5 is some procurement updates from John.
Yep. So these have already been awarded. Based on the last meeting, you provided the authority to administration to award. However, what we wanted to do was just give you an update on what we have awarded during since the last meeting. We went out to bid for paper, bought 1,680 cases. At a price of $38,102, which is a very good price. I mean, paper has been very competitive this year. It's down over $2 a case from where it was the previous year. And our inventories had actually diminished so much this year that even interim during the course of this year, we had to go out and buy some additional, paper as well, and got actually got a price that was just a little bit higher than that. So, very good purchase. And we have adequate inventory for next year's purchases. So that was $38,102. Then we also, on June 25th, we opened the bid for the Foster shed, and I regret to report that the price of that bid came in at $192,000. Just way higher than any imagination that I ever had. Breaking the components down, some of the structural work was priced at $61,000, and the painting alone, the sandblasting and the painting, 3-coat epoxy paint, was $84,000. And then the residual to the $192 was the contractor's markup, of about $50,000. So I called the engineering firm, and I talked to him and said, did you think, and they didn't have any any sense that this project was going to be that high either. So he's actually gone back to the drawing board, and he's contacted a couple of additional vendors, and he's given me a couple of names of people, you know, and suggested maybe we should try that alternative, which is let's farm out the structural steel and see what kind of price we can get for that. And then after that, you know, let's take a look at the painting and see what type of price we can get for the painting. So that would be, yeah, so needless to say, we rejected all bids. I mean, I know I told Ray before we rejected that, and of course Dot, and said, you know, it just was too high. And then, you know, hopefully I would think that in the fall, or, you know, once the busy summer season gets, I could probably take the spec, and then, he gave me a couple of contractors. I might just try calling a couple of contractors, have them come down and look at the job and sort of give me a verbal or a written quote on the job. You know, see what it comes out. You know, is it going to come out at $61,000 or higher? Because he didn't think the weight of the steel was that much. So,
So you've encumbered the $61,000.
I've encumbered $61,000 to try to do at least the structural piece of this project sometime this year. And, you know, as I said, once the busy summer starts, we can try to get a spec out there and contact these contractors and see if we get a better picture of what we can get the structural for done for.
Right, so that's $61,000 encumbered from fiscal $14, and I had a conversation with Ray Eisenbees of Capital Outlay just to confirm that with him and run down the list of essentially kitchen capital items that we were all agreed that we were going to move forward with purchases this summer.
And they're on order. Those are on
know
order.
that those could come off the, you know, we would not be coming back to Capital Outlay to revisit those. And I also let advisory know that we would be doing that as well, and they were appreciative of the information.
And then also, we opened the security bids, and I actually went through and checked all their references. And those bids came in from a range of $159,700 all the way up to $260,000. This was a procurement from FAC 64, which is really the state contract. And the good thing about purchasing from FAC 64 is you write a spec and you tell them exactly what you want. But you can go out on the contracts and you can invite the vendors in. So I invited 4 vendors in. We did a tour of all the buildings on June 5th so that they saw where we were thinking about cameras. And basically, we can have everybody in the same footing and say, this is what I want you to price out. And then I'm going to pick the vendor based on the information you give me and the references. But then after that, you can negotiate further. So you can add to the contract, you could negotiate a lower price, and you can talk to them. I added to the contract because we had available funds, so I've added more cameras to the high school. The south parking lot, initially we had 3, so now we have 6 out there. And I've added 4 cameras to the concession area, so now we got the concession fully covered. And, you know, this is all well within our budget, because I had about $200,000 budgeted for it. The one for $159, Citronics, very good company, good references, but they were all commercial. It was Stop and Shop. It was, you know, it was Shaw's supermarkets. And, you know, I look at those, and they're just a big box. And you can hang cameras, but I was looking for schools or, you know, municipal town buildings, because those are the ones, like, this is an old schoolhouse. It's got room after room after room, and how do you get from one place to another to put the wires? Intel had 3 very large town projects, and they came in at $169. So, you know, that was well worth it, and they've actually almost completed with the high school now. We're actually touring South tomorrow so that they can start over on South. They've pulled fiber. The fiber pull is into the closet, and they just went gangbusters. We started the project, you know, June 30th. We kicked it off. They came the next day. They were down and saying, we want to use this as a staging area. Then they had the guys in there. So the project is going very, very well. Well, the security, in addition, that's the camera project. We also have window film going on, all the buildings. That'll be put on the 23rd. And then we have the access controls work should be getting done this summer as well. And we already got the server for the panic alarm system. So, you know, come the end of the summer, I think we'll be in very good shape.
Thank you
We
for
do have to
that.
address the video policy.
So
John, you mentioned the far parking lot. It just reminded me, what happened to that light pole, and what's the status of its resurrection?
That light pole has to be resurrected very quickly. The contractor, for, you know, the road contractor,
Oh,
he
was it
broke it,
figured,
yeah.
yeah.
So I've got, Yes was the electrician, I think, that put those things out there. So he's supposed to be giving us a price so that we can go to the insurance company and say, this is how much it costs. We have to get that pole up because that's one of the poles for the security cameras. It's it's closer because we want to get ID cameras when they come into the parking lot. So so I've told him it's urgent, I got to get the price for that, and we got to get the pole back up. So, yeah, Roger called me and said, hey, can we use it as a stage and we'll use the old lot? And I said, yeah, okay, fine. And I called Roger and I said, hey, what's up with my pole here? So the contractor's insurance will cover it.
Yeah, and they have promised to clean up after
Right.
they're done with staging. I did notice that there's piles of stuff on some of the islands, too, so they're going to have a lot of work to clean
Okay.
up and
Yeah, we'll make
restore
sure
it
it's
to the
cleaned
way
up.
it was, because
Yeah.
it was new.
Right,
But I had a conversation with Roger Fernandez about it, so.
right. Roger will make good on it.
Yep.
So you mentioned earlier, or Ray mentioned earlier about the telephone systems going into the various schools.
Yes.
I'm just curious, where do we stand on the South Elementary upgrade? Is that done, or is that in the
That
process?
should be done
or-
by August 1st as well, Dennis. All of our schools should be done by August 1st. That was the, Harbor Networks is there. We bought a ShoreTel system. Steve Becker's been working diligently to get everything done.
Okay.
They're probably implementing, and then, you know, they get the lines, and then they'll just go one day, probably hang the phones, and then they'll get it all tweaked on the system.
Okay.
So I imagine there's been a lot of planning going on, because I've heard it for the past several weeks. You may not see the phone on the wall, but I think that's probably the easiest part of the job.
Okay.
Thank you, John. It's a lot of good work happening this summer. Okay, let's see, we have a retirement. Thank you and good luck. We have 5 resignations and 11 appointments. Welcome, there's no new folks to Hingham Public Schools.
I would add that one of the resignations for Nate Thorstensen, Nate is going to become an assistant principal. I think it's in Mansfield, so congratulations to him. I would point out among the new hires there that you see listed there, the 2 new adjustment counselors, one at Foster, Catherine Ryan will remain, one at South, Catherine Ryan will remain at East, and the second new person will be at Foster, and A.C. Decker will be remaining at Plymouth River. Also, you note there that Tracy Blake will be replacing Diane Hallisey as the library media person at Plymouth River. However, the library media resource person, we posted that position internally, and Debbie Hall, who's the current librarian at Foster, will be taking that. And I do have all of those personnel sheets in the red folder if anyone wants to look at them, but you will receive, just as school starts, a complete list of all our new hire with brief bio information, and that's to come. But if you wanted to check any of it out, they are in the red folder here.
Dr. Geller, who is the teacher that's has resigned and is taking an assistant principalship?
It's Nate.
Nate Thorstensen. Nate was a third grade teacher at South School, and his wife is the librarian at East School.
He'll be missed.
Dawn,
Yeah.
Yes, he will be missed.
a question on a couple of these partial positions. Are they doing anything else for us, or is this just works out with their?
Well, for
Schedule.
example, the .5
Looking at-
social studies,
Yes.
who is a Hingham High School graduate, I would point out, that is a new .5 FTE
Okay.
that we budgeted. The .375, that is a person we have reduced. We had 2 part-time people in English, and we've reduced them both to .5. One is Pete Woodward, who's been around for a while, and one is Mary Andrews, who returned in the past year. They'll both be at .5. And so the 3/8 that we've saved is for this position.
So was
So-
that teaching one course?
So, no, that is teaching, let me see how it goes, one course, one semester, and two the other, I think it is.
Okay.
That's how that, and my, that young man also will be working as an aide.
Okay, great.
So we don't have anybody that's working 3/8 and 2/5 and 4/5, being a person and 3/4.
Well, you know, a number of years ago, we negotiated a change in our contract language that, said whatever the percentage of classes they work is, that's the percent that they get in salary. We had, for many years, the secondary level said, well, .5 is 3 classes, but 3 classes is not .5. 3 classes is .6, so now it's true to the actual assignment.
Any other questions? 823 is advancements on the salary scale for degrees, credits earned, correct?
Yes, these are the ones that we anticipate right now as of September.
September.
1. There may be a few more, people finishing up courses next month or whatever, but this is what we have right now.
Great. Number 9 we've done. Any other 48-hour items?
No.
John?
Just invoices for the field.
Okay.
They, we had these, they came in late last month, right after our meeting. So we just have 3 invoices. Copies of that, records of the invoice. There's no copies? No copies, Hal?
Sure.
That's right.
What's that for?
It's, so on here, you'll see there's a sizable one to RAD that's essentially a lot of the balance of the contract due for the high school field improvement project. There is still some being held back for punch list items that need to be completed, bleacher work, landscaping, some other items. And I'd point out that Tom Perry, who was our main point of contact for project management for Park Corp, is leaving Park Corp as of this Friday, moving on to another position with another company. So that's a huge loss, just because of our personal relationship with him. But that work is ongoing while RAD closes out the project. So this is something we knew when we met at the concession that morning. This had not been submitted timely, so we didn't get a chance to deal with it the last meeting. But we knew it was coming.
So Bart is going to appoint someone else to complete the work?
Yeah, so either Andrew Shagnon, who's the supervising engineer, will do it himself, or one of his other engineers will. But it's really just close out now, making sure that punch list items are done. The bleacher refinishing work is, I think, starting Monday.
It's supposed to be the 25th, right? Was it
Yeah,
25th?
Friday or Monday, maybe over this
Yeah.
weekend it starts. And there's some residual landscaping work and some other punch list items that still remain. But I'll be talking to Tom this week to just confirm the remaining punch list. And
will we have a schedule of when those things will be done?
yeah, we'll have to go over that as well this week.
Okay.
So hopefully by our next meeting, I'll be able to.
I've been in contact with Tom almost daily for the past week and a half.
Yeah.
So we have to be sure to get him an invite to the,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we wish Tom well. He was a great guy to work
Yep,
with.
no, absolutely.
Went above and beyond,
He did.
really did.
Oh, and for those of you, he's been with PAR for a number of years. He actually presented our case to the Board of Health when we had to relocate the force main for the new middle school project. So he's been working with us in various capacities for a number of years, and has always been a terrific resource. So we certainly do wish him well. Do you want to?
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion. First motion to pay Chesia Consulting Services LLC, invoice number 1265, an amount of $115 for,
All right, so this is a write-up of site visit notes from May. I did get notice that he did visit the site as we were submitting as-built plans and getting ready to ask them for kind of final sign-off on the various permits.
Second.
thank you.
We'll sign it and send it.
Take a vote.
Sorry, so we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye. I'll make a motion to pay Power Corporation invoice number 12 in the amount of $1,478.40.
That's for project management services from April 26th to May 30th, 2014.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
And finally, make a motion to pay Rad Sports invoice number 6 in an amount of $89,083.12, which represents a portion of the contract that is still owed to them.
Sure. So the original contract sum was $4,566,000. There was a reduction due to net change orders that ended up in a reduction, resulting in $4,555,287.40. Of that, they've completed $4,549,287. There is a balance remaining, including retainage of $35,156. So that's still being held, and this current payment of $89,083.12 reflects work from several months that just had not been billed.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
John, how's our budget on the field as we're getting close to?
Well, the budget
Balance,
and,
I guess would be a better word.
what's that?
How's our balance?
The balance for the field account, I mean, the balance for the field account is all expended. And the balance, so we had the donations account, and then, we have some letters of credit of like $50,000 left, plus we have another letter of credit for $100,000. So we have about $150,000 that we're floating.
Okay.
But we still have, we haven't paid Seaver their last one, and we still owe, we have money in reserve for the Kerbin, which we haven't fulfilled yet. I have applied money, like we had, some of the change orders, we had said we would use funding from the field revolving, so I've taken that field revolving amounts and applied it to the project. So, I mean, we're liquid, we're doing fine.
And rumor has it we might get another donation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Always good news.
Yep. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to executive session for discussion of collective bargaining, not to return to open session. Discuss the strategies.
Is there a second?
Second.
With a roll call, Liza.
Aye.
Aye.
Dennis.
Aye.
Aye.
Ed. Aye. Okay, thank you. We're adjourned.